Come on. Live and direct, you are tuned into the Bro Diallo Show, broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, state of Illinois. Today is June 8th in the year of your Lord, 2018. If you're listening to Bro Diallo Show via the radio, AM 1680, iTunes app, or tune in, and you're wondering about the live, today I'm going live from YouTube. So you can go to YouTube/Diallo Kenyatta to get the live feed. Sorry to my Facebook Live listeners. Hope everyone can get with the adjustment with as little disruption as possible. But you can also go to my Facebook page and you will find the link there to the live. Um, and after the show, not during the show, if you want to contact me if you had any issues. But again, you can find Bro Diallo Show live, AM 1680 if you're in the Chicagoland area, the TuneIn app, or iTunes Radio. You can search Q4, QUE, the number 4, or you can listen live at the Q4 website, www.QUE, the number 4.org. And you will also find this show along with all other shows archived at diallokenyatta.com. And for my Patreon supporters, get full access to over 100 shows for uh, a dollar, and for as little as the dollar a month at Diallo Patreon/Diallo Kenyatta. Well over 100 shows dating all the way back to my very first broadcast. So I hope we can navigate this transition from Facebook Live to YouTube Live without much obstruction. I'm trying to be responsive to my growing listener base. Um, I appreciate my listeners and I try to accommodate. And I've been uh, not only dealing with Facebook's new commitment to real news as opposed to fake news, I suppose. And by real news is any news that is sanctioned by multinational corporations. And fake news at this point has evolved into any news that is not sanctioned by multinational corporations, that is not being sponsored by corporations or being sponsored by institutions of power. Even though the so-called real news, right, dating all the way back, there's an entire uh, hour documentary about the lies of the New York Times and the biases of the New York Times called Manufacturing Consent by the legendary Noam Chomsky. Let me hit this light real quick. Give me 1 second, everybody. Sorry. Crappy lighting, man. It's just blaring down through the camera. So, yeah, that's better. I feel better now. Done better than that. Anyway, so Facebook, because they got busted selling user data, has decided that they are going to determine for their billions of users what's appropriate or what's real news versus what's fake news, and they're not going to use anything besides some, shut-in geek uh, personal opinions and biases to determine that. So I figured, let me go to greener pastures. Well, I didn't make this determination myself. I had to keep it real. I've had people, aside from the censorship, say, why aren't you on YouTube, or if you could broadcast on YouTube. So let's make it happen, Captain, and see how it goes. But anyway, that's that. Again, if you have issues with this transition, you can still listen to the radio show in its entirety uh, via the other avenues that I've listed. You can go to my Facebook page, my blog. I'll put some info up on the website about the transition and all of that. So hopefully we'll still have access. For the longest, the show is here. I'm talking all this mess and making all these adjustments, and there's a real chance Bro Diallo Show could go off the air. So then there's that. For lack of support. So let me not get too full of myself. Um, I found this out. Even though I try to spare myself, I try to remain ignorant. I mean, I criticize people for being willfully ignorant all the time, but I have to admit, I have things that I struggle to remain ignorant of, things that I don't care to know and would be content not to know. But then, because I can't just know something. I'm the kind of dude that if something comes into my peripheral, I tend to look in it and I kind of look uh, look deeper into it, and it's a mess. But I found out that yesterday the Washington Wizards won the Stanley Cup, which is hockey. And so the hockey championships, did y'all even know that they overlap with the basketball championship? I must think that the pro sports industries, the sponsors, the reptilian overlords must think that the hockey fans aren't the same as basketball fans, because wouldn't that just be overload? Can you imagine the Super Bowl happening right in the midst of the NBA finals? So maybe they just think y'all don't mix, y'all don't stir. Brothers don't watch hockey, and hockey dudes don't watch ball chasing brothers, puck chasers and ball chasers, fans don't mix and mingle. I don't know. But there was something that I was reading about, because I normally don't give a damn about hockey, but it's Washington, D.C. And Donald Trump said that the Washington uh, Wizards, I believe the name of the team is, winning the hockey uh, Stanley Cup was evidence of that, just winning in Washington overall, of his of his winning policies. No, Washington Nationals. Wizards are the basketball chasers. The puck chasers are the Washington Nationals, and the ball chasers are the Redskins. Who are the basketball? I, I don't know. I'm sorry, but it's the Washington Nationals. No disrespect to the fans of the Washington Nationals, but that's not what's relevant to me. I don't care that they won. I don't care about hockey. I don't never watch the hockey game, but I don't watch basketball. I just don't care about pro sports in the least bit. But one thing that stuck out to me is that apparently during the hockey game, the championship game broadcast around the world for the Stanley Cup, that's the big thing in puck chasing. There were at least two fistfights between players on the field. And the commentators and the sports journalists just casually would talk about all the fights throughout the seasons and how the refs even get punched in the gut or get entangled in the fight. Hockey is all about fighting, and they have these guys, goons or enforcers, that are out there just to smash people up. And I know, like football, hockey is a full contact sport. But can you imagine if LeBron James, or who's the other guy? Steph Curry was out there bashing each other in the face. And my point in this is that I know there's some brothers, and I know y'all love anytime y'all get into white spaces. It's time for gospel music. It's time for the Holy Ghost dance. Y'all love it. Oh, he's the first black this and the first black that, and you got a black man here and a black man there. They're black, everywhere, black, black. You know, y'all love when black people get up into white people's spaces because y'all feel like that validates your humanity because the dehumanization process has not fully been abandoned, and our deep-seated desires for integration and equality with our oppressors has not been abandoned. So I know there are some black hockey players y'all love, even though y'all never watch hockey. If a brother, you know, a couple of Canadian black twins or something got on a pro hockey team and was kicking butt, and y'all just get this overwhelming well up of pride. Look at a black man in a black space. You know, black people, it's just like, you know, you got a black woman marrying a white inbred European monarch. And y'all get so happy, even though, you know, African monarchs, you know, they're monarchs all over Africa, and every now and then they'll marry a peasant, you know. But that doesn't get as much press because we are more impressed with ourselves given with white folks. But it's mostly white. I'm not going to bother to look up the stats, but you can. I'm going to tell you it's hella whiter than football, baseball, and basketball. A lot more whiter. It's whiter than soccer even, or football. American, they call it soccer, but I mean, don't say football in reference. Don't say soccer in reference to football especially to a Nigerian. I've been cussed out by a particular Nigerian that got mad at me for saying, "Oh, that's soccer. It's not soccer." And then explain to you how they use their feet in you call American football. They use their hands. But anyway, West Indians, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, all of that, just call it, when you're around them, call it football. Especially black people of African descent and black people in Latin, Afro-Latinos, whatever we're calling them this week, do not call football soccer. But soccer is football and football is soccer around the world aside from the United States. But anyway, football and football with the accent, and football and football, all of that's black. The whitest pro sport, at least in the United States, is hockey. And they get away with a lot more. They bash each other in the heads. They're a lot less policed than basketball players. I've never heard. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm sure, because I got some aggressive checkers out there. But I don't be hearing about, and I know these hockey players be doing, they get up to a lot of dirt. You know, there's one, the guy on the Washington Nationals, he loves Vladimir Putin and Russia, and he's from Russia and he's not fully patriotic. I bet you he's less patriotic to America than Kaepernick is for personal reasons. But he says he loves Vladimir Putin. He loves the Russian agenda. And right now they're trying to reignite a new Cold War. I don't hear much of you. How often? Because I don't follow any sports. So I know as much about puck chasing as I know about ball chasing. But I pick up stuff because these are our national, so-called national pastime. That's a myth. It's not the pastime anymore. It's the central activity. But, and I got something to say about that because somebody tried to lie. And I had to catch him in that lie. But it seems that football players, baseball players, basketball players are policed a lot more aggressive. They get fines for things that hockey players might have to sit in the penalty box for a few minutes and then come finish the game. Black players, or people who play sports dominated by black players, get kicked off the field. They might get kicked out for a whole season. They might lose their contract. They lose endorsements. But when the white boys with the hockey sticks get out there and hit each other with hockey sticks and curse out refs and spit at fans, they're like, woo, boys will be boys. So I'm just thinking that is evidence. That demonstrates, again, it's racism. And I know any white folks listening roll their eyes. White people like racism isn't real because it doesn't happen to me. And I'm the only thing that matters in the world. So that's just something so congratulations, Washington Wizards. Congratulations, Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump is taking credit for the Wizards' win. and everything right in Washington, even though he had literally less than nothing to do with it. And then they're discussing, they're all talking. And I think journalists are real stupid for this, talking about whether or not the hockey players, the Stanley Cup winners, the Washington Nationals will accept Trump's invite to the White House and whether they'll bring the Stanley Cup and do this photo op with Trump. As if, like I said, it's the whitest sport. I mean, it's the whitest sport. Uh, no, I keep saying Wizards. Washington Wizards. I like that name. The Washington Nationals. Um, I'm just going to pull up here their team photo for this year. Let's see. Let's see. Washington. Those are baseball players. What? I don't. Wait, it's not the Washington Nationals. Washington hockey. I don't claim to know this stuff. I'm learning as I go. Here we go. The Washington D.C. national team. No. What the bumbo? Or is it the Wizards? This is whack. Washington D.C. hockey. I thought this would be easier. Oh, here we go. Washington Capitals. Damn. So apparently the Washington Nationals are baseball. I'm sorry. I'm indulging myself. The Washington Capitals. TEAM. Okay. Sorry. Now we got it. Here we go. Ain't a brother in the bunch. But sometimes it be some brothers in there that don't look like brothers. But I still accept them as brothers. Y'all black eugenicists. I know the starting lineup, all white dudes with scruffy beards. All white dudes. So the Washington Capitals, all white dudes, I don't think they are going to shun the Trump administration for his immigration policies, for support endorsing white nationalists, for, yep, there it is. It is one black dude, but he don't have on a jersey. I think he's just like the butter boy or holds the coach's salt. I don't know. Anyway, something tells me they will be going to the White House. And maybe brothers in D.C. going to start running around in Washington Capitals jerseys. Because I know when the Blackhawks, when I first moved here to Chicago, the Blackhawks were winning. And the Blackhawks are a Native American nation that the white folks wiped out in this region of the world that we now call Illinois, the Great Lake region. And brothers was wearing like $400-$500 what do they call them things? Jerseys? Throwbacks? I don't know what they call them in hockey. Again, I'm speaking, I'm a bit at a disadvantage because I don't understand this stuff. But all I'm saying, one thing I do understand, that if a sport is predominantly black, the players and their behaviors are greatly policed on and off field. Whereas the sport that's predominantly white, these hockey players, they bang on each other in the field, and the penalties is like, oh, they're just going to fight. They're athletes at the top of their game. There's a bunch of adrenaline on that ice, so of course they're going to fight. What can you do? Boys will be boys. Men will be men. But then the ball chasers, the brothers, yo, boy, you better not yell back at that ref. You better not thump a chest. You better not hold the ball for too long. They just bang on the penalties. Now, I'm going to look more into this. That's why I don't like hearing about this stuff, because nothing matters less to me than pro sports. But I'm going to look into this and see if my theory is correct. I already know for a fact, just from listening to the journalists talk about the Stanley Cup, and reading articles, a couple of articles about the Stanley Cup, and reading about Trump. And I know in the championship games, there were at least 2 fist fights between the players. And I didn't hear anything about penalties. I didn't hear anything about fines. I didn't hear anything about permanent ejection from the game. And can you imagine a basketball game with the brothers and LeBron throw a punch at Curry? Because I know Curry ain't crazy enough to throw a punch at LeBron. LeBron grew up hard. All that money. I mean, you can take a brother out the street, but you can't sometimes off. You can get the street out of brother, but sometimes you can't. But if there was going to be a punch thrown, I don't know. And maybe I'm stereotyping. Maybe I'm being classist. Um, if LeBron threw a punch at Steph Curry, can you imagine the controversy, the headlines, the ejections, the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in fines, the loss of endorsements, all rained down on LeBron. But if he was a white hockey player and he threw a punch at the star on the other team, oh yeah, we're gonna have him sit in the penalty box. Wow, what an exciting game! What a passionate player. Just more. I'm just pointing that out. Because I mean, I don't really understand how any self-respecting adult black man, and it's mostly us, can really follow ball chasing. I mean, there's just so many, from a political, historical, cultural, societal standpoint. I can't separate all of that when I'm looking at these men chase balls for millions of dollars and the trade and the combine. And there's just too much there. A popular word to say unpack. There's too much there to unpack. I don't really have to unpack it. But my mind, when I'm watching LeBron chase balls or whatever football players do their stanky leg after making a touchdown, or seeing these Spanish-speaking brothers hit the baseballs and run around the bases, it's so much more than that. There's a whole book written on how baseball has been used as a tool for empire. How the U.S. government will go around the world setting up baseball. They use jazz the same way. Has been used as a tool for empire and jingoism and just the whole controversy over standing for the national anthem. You will be loyal. You will bow down to a nation that has done nothing but try to dehumanize you, to deny you rights. The United States to this day owes black people literally trillions of dollars in unpaid wealth from land, labor, resources. And all of that is symbolized in sports. From the sports mascots to the rituals to whenever you look at a game, look at who advertises on games. From beer, the U.S. military, and the flags every damn where. It's bread and circuses. And it's not just bread and circuses. It's nationalism. It's imperialism. It's white power on display. Like Bobby E. Wright said, he was watching a basketball game, all black dudes. And the name the team was the Fighting Irish. And a brother from the black dude from the basketball team gets the basketball, gets a rebound, heads for a fast break, about to dunk. And the commentator saying, look at the Irish, look at the Irish. So they don't even acknowledge, you got 5 black dudes on the field talking about they're the Fighting Irish. And I just can't comfortably watch that stuff. I can't comfortably do it. I can't separate sports from history, culture, politics, and the current reality of black people. And being class conscious, I'm very resentful of these black men getting millions of dollars. I'm even more resentful of these so-called team owners. These so-called team owners getting billions of dollars and chasing balls, even if you're the best ball chaser in the world, the best hockey puck chaser in the world. It don't purify no water. It don't pave no roads. It doesn't provide aid or comfort to the afflicted. It might be entertaining, and entertainment is important, believe you me. But then let me tell you something. This sister tried to tell a lie, because I did a series of tweets. Not really tweets, but just posts about basketball, NBA. And I say the NBA stands for neutered but athletic. No black awareness. And the NBA finals and football and all the stuff that's going on. And the sister tried to come at me and say, well, even the most hardened revolutionary needs a little break, needs some time away. And I know a lot of conscious, revolutionary, committed people, they like to watch boxing and MMA and basketball. But I told her, I could see, you can't lie and say that there's a balance going on here when Our revolutionaries live in obscurity. They often die in poverty, penniless, and our ball chasers live like literally modern day monarchs with millions of dollars. We gave Jordan billions of dollars, and Jordan ain't never gave a damn about nothing black aside from his black Lamborghini rate, maybe. Ain't spoke on no black issues, ain't took no stands, ain't even done no Kaepernick, no Ali, no, even his own teammate went to him. Craig Hodges, who was kicked off the team for trying to, use his platform in the interest of his people. Now, Team Tebow can use football to promote Christianity, as if Christianity needs any more promotion. You got a whole armada and fleets and nuclear bombs to promote Western Christianity and Western culture. I don't know why they think they need a ball chase. But anyway, Craig Hodges went to Jordan and was like, man, we got to do something, man. This is the height of the crack epidemic, the so-called crack epidemic. You say, as E-Rock said from the coup, Boots said from the coup. Boots and E-Rock. They used to trade off in their raps. So they said, the black on black crisis is a myth. The crack that did the damage was the one from the whip. So it ain't the drugs messing us up. It's the economy, the system, the politics, the policies. But he went to Jordan. Craig Hodges went to Jordan and said, we're in a good position to make some positive impact for our people. And Jordan said, man, you better go and run those drills and get out my face with that mess. If black people don't like being poor, tell them to get on this field and dunk some balls like I do. I just think the social value and the social contribution of basketball is so, in all other pro sports, is so obscenely inflated, which would be less of a problem if actual people doing socially valuable work, raising and educating children, sustaining the infrastructure that we need to live, providing goods and services for us and our family members, if they weren't so devalued, maybe the overvaluation of ball chasing and doing a minstrel show perhaps wouldn't bother me as much. But all that comes into, that's why. But she lied and said, if you want to, it's nothing wrong with, if you represent for your community, if you're a good person in the community, there's nothing wrong with you taking some time to watch some ball chasing. And I said, I agree with that, but that's not how it plays out. When one side has billions of dollars and the other side is starved from resources. That's not a balance. That's not a getaway. That's not an extracurricular activity. That is the central meaning, identity. And you meet a lot of people, especially men, and tragically even black men, who their team is their identity. Their team wins, I win. No matter what my societal condition is, no matter what the status quo says, when LeBron wins, we win. Nothing. We win absolutely nothing. I guess it's an adrenaline rush. And then it's this fake connection, like I'm connected to something. Like all the other fans of a player. You can't borrow a stick of butter from another Cavaliers fan. They won't do you none. If you have some hardship, they're probably going to mock you, call you broke, struggling. But we got this empty, pointless solidarity. We're all fans of the same team. We're all connected. And you don't even know your neighbor's name, but you know the name of everybody on the roster. You don't know the stats, the crime stats, the homicide stats, the chronic disease statistics for your own community, but you know the stats for the ball chasing team. And you get mad if your favorite team needs a wide receiver, or if your famous team needs a better center or a point guard, and then they don't get it in the draft. Your team has a deficiency, it outrages you. But if your community can have dozens, if not thousands of deficiencies, and you gloss over it, I got mine, get yours. So that empty, they've replaced the camaraderie and connection that we have with each other on a communal level with having fantasy connections to these fictional beings called, pro athletes. And they have these images built up around them. It's really, and I'm just telling you, I can't sit there, like when I'm watching, and I'm impressed. Don't believe me, I know. I've played basketball. I've competed in sports, from cross country, basketball. I wanted to be a football player, just didn't have the body habitus for it. But I used to play football. in the neighborhood at least. I understand the value of camaraderie and competition and athleticism, and I understand just how these dudes cultivate these skills. Or maybe they're not cultivating skills; they just not very skillful. But like Shaq, 700 feet tall and 9,000 pounds, so you ain't really got to have skills when you are literally a living human truck. But again, I can't enjoy the impressive talent of these individuals without being reflective. And then a lot of our revolutionaries, our freedom fighters, and our scholarly athletes and our politically conscious athletes have always said, if your people are oppressed, whatever talent you have should be committed to your people's interests and struggles. When your people are free, then you're free to be individualistic as you want. But it is your duty, it is your destiny, it is your responsibility, it is your obligation that if you have a little extra, you got to kick in. And some artists and athletes understand this, from like Bob Marley, with him putting up money for anti-colonial guerrilla struggles, Muhammad Ali, again, Craig Hodges, Colin Kaepernick. Give me a Colin Kaepernick any day. I ain't got nothing for. I ain't about to pay to watch or even take my time to watch Mayweather fight. But then they got some, and I ain't talking about paying tuition for some black kids. I'm not talking about passing out turkeys on Thanksgiving. I ain't saying don't do that, and I ain't saying if LeBron is giving out tuition checks and Steph Curry is giving out turkeys and that's your custom, go get you a turkey and go get you a tuition check. But don't have the illusion that that's empowerment, that that's liberation. That's insufficient, and often that is supporting the status quo. That is keeping you where you are, as opposed to elevating and empowering you. So anyway, that's the thing. So go watch hockey. If you're into sports, go watch hockey and watch how they police, how they critique, how they penalize hockey players for committing the same violations as football players, basketball players, and baseball players. And then you understand the discrepancy on how aggressively policed and penalized they are by understanding that it's hardly any black people that play hockey or even watch hockey, where all of these other pro sports are just, we're overrepresented according to the owners and the white fans. Black athletes are overrepresented, so the black athletes don't get too uppity. And here's a dress code, and don't stand on the app. Do they have all that for hockey? I know they let them get away with fighting more than they do the other sports, but are there other, and this is just, I already know. Like I said, you can't win, you can't make it, and you can't get out of the game. That's the new black national anthem for me. You can't win. I don't say we're done, and then I don't encourage black folks to try to achieve. I say flip over the table. Don't try to win at the game. Flip the damn table over. Because when Europeans came to Africa, they didn't say, oh, we're here in Africa now. We're here in Africa from Europe, and we're going to find out the African economy, and we're going to try to achieve within the African economy following the African economic protocols and standards. And we're going to try to get Europeans elected to the African political system, and we're going to achieve, and we're going to master the African languages and speak standard African languages, and we're going to achieve, and that's how we're going to get ahead on the African continent. Same thing with Native Americans. Same thing with the Aboriginal people and the Pacific Islanders and the Samoa. Same thing. They don't go anywhere and try to master other people's systems. They come and smash other people's systems and impose their own damn systems. And so since that's the way, I mean, the most recent example, Israel didn't go, and Jews have been living in Palestine forever. And they didn't say, let's worship their gods and follow their rules and then achieve and outpace them and outcompete them according to their rules. They smash it. So I don't see why we got to try to do it in a way that's never been done. I ain't for reinventing wheels. I just go with what I've seen has worked. Moving on, I have a problem. And call it jealousy, call it player Haitian, call it whatever you want. But I asked the black community on social media for the black ratio. And I put it all the way up to 5-1. But I'm willing to go with a 1-to-1 ratio, a 2-to-1 ratio. And I'll call it the menticide ratio. I haven't thought of a good name for it. The radical ratio, the revolutionary ratio. But the ratio basically asked, for every time you share something demeaning on social media, you should share at least 3 to 5 things that are not uplifting, but at least scholarly, at least intellectually stimulating, at least valid. Is that too much to ask? Because this pisses me off. There's some idiotic, ridiculous, absurd, goofy ass dude that's sharing nonsense about black women should give black men all their money and submit. Basically, he's sharing a Judeo-Christian help meet relationship advice, biblical relationships, biblical Western relationships that he has tried to fuse with theocratic black nationalism. I don't know what to call this nonsense. Utter absolute nonsense. Tribal black theocratic nationalism of the black Hebrews. And the dude looks as crazy as he sounds. He's got like this blowout, this long, ultra perm, and this silly costume, and this silly headband, and he's on there talking utter nonsense. And I know less than a dozen people have shared this with me, tagged it with me, and this guy's, everybody's watching and everybody's having a good time mocking him. And this is another thing. And I don't care who it is. Every time when you share something you're against, you're perpetuating it. And then you don't even give counterbalancing info, because I share a lot of negativity. So I'm not saying share light and share positivity. I'm not asking y'all to start sharing Will Smith inspiration videos. What I'm saying is we have to fight menticide. We have to end menticide. And when you're just sharing this stuff without any context, without any commentary, without any opportunities to give people the correct point of view. So you share this guy talking nonsense. You denounce this guy for talking nonsense. And everybody's having a good laugh at his idiotic expense. And millions of people are watching this and sharing this. And is anybody saying, well, he's talking about, what, toxic masculinity? He's an infantile, delusional individual. And here are some resources, some links, some insights to counter what he's saying. Here's the more appropriate way to approach interpersonal and intimate relationships amongst African people in the diaspora. So if I'm going to share something that is absurd or that is quote unquote negative, I'm going to give you an opportunity or give you some resources to get the what actually is the actual facts. So if I'm going to say, look, this is an individual, or this is an article, this is an image that is portraying something wrong, incorrect, oppressive, here's the countermeasure. Here's what's actually true. And we're giving so much weight and attention. And yeah, I'm hating. Because I'd like to think that the content that I produce, whether through writing or these videos or through broadcasting on Q4 Radio, AM 1680, I'd like to think that I research, I try to validate, I give references, I encourage people to challenge me. And I acknowledge, look, I'm a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. And I don't ever say I'm fair and balanced. I have obvious open biases. I have an agenda that I'm very clear about. But I don't say accept the agenda because God put it on my heart to share it with you. I don't say accept this agenda. I say accept this agenda because this agenda is historically valid. You can find historical precedents for what I advocate working, whether it's dietary, environmental, or political. And I'm willing to hear the voices. I've had a Hebrew Israelite on here to discuss the Hamitic prophetic curses of black people. I've had feminist scholars on here. So even though I don't have to say I'm fair and balanced, I let you decide that for yourself. But I'd like to say, despite everything else, my content is based in critical analysis, radical critique, research, evidence. It's historical. It's properly context, and ain't nobody trying to hear it. I'm a lonely voice in the wilderness. But then you got some woman sucking her boyfriend's crusty toe in a hot tub, and it gets 15 million shares. And I'm not saying don't show this crusty toe sucking. I'm not saying don't share that. I'm saying for yourself, whatever you think is an appropriate ratio. Like, listen, I shared an image of crusty toe sucking. So let me find an image of Ida B. Wells and share that too. And let me find a march of the Black Cross Nurses Association from the Universal Negro Association, the Garvey movement. Let me share a couple of those images and maybe provide some links and some insights about that history. That's all I'm asking. To have a ratio, a 1-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1 ratio, 3, I say it's anything beyond 5-to-1, you get a bit excessive. But at least a 1-to-1 ratio. If I'm going to share some nonsense, and I got my own, I got stuff, I'm into nonsense. I'm a big fan of 40K lore. Can't get enough of it. My wife teases me, yes, hostile environment, toxic femininity. She teases me about my interest in 40K lore. And it's utter bunk nonsense. Fantasies, orcs, and Eldars. It's like Lord of the Rings in space. And I play some of the role-playing video games. And I read about and watch YouTube videos of that. But if I'm going to share a video of the Chaos Space Marines and the Necron Overlord battle, if I'm going to share that nonsense, at least let me put up a Professor William Mackey or a Dale Jones lecture. I mean, let's use this tool of social media and in some way to advance something beyond just how wonderful our personal lives are and how giddy we get or how outraged we get. And I know it's evolutionary. We tend to focus on bad things. And I don't blame us for focusing on bad things. I think we need to cultivate that because this is an evolutionary theory. And it's saying, like, when you stare at a train wreck, you stare at a car accident, if some people get into a fight, it captures your attention, or negative headlines grabs your attention, or if a woman's sucking a crusty toe in a dank hot tub in a trashy hotel room, that captures your attention. Because in our evolutionary development, our ancestors that focused on negativity had a higher survivability rate. See, the kind of ancestor that would say, listen, I'm going out foraging for food. And so negative things or suspicious or unweird things are happening around him. He's like, I'm here. I'm going to focus on foraging for food to get nutrition for my village. I ain't trying to focus on nothing else. And then a lion comes up, a saber-toothed lion, or a cave bear comes up and eats him because he's one of them kind of cats that don't focus on negativity. But the ancestor that was like, I'm going out foraging for food. But if I hear a noise or if I see something strange, or something negative, I hear a roar, it's going to capture my attention. It might even take my attention away from focusing on foraging for food. The figs and the juniper berries are going to have to wait. What is that noise? What was that shadow? What's that movement? What's that rustling? What was that sound? What's going on? And then he comes back and they were like, where the berries? Where the roots? You went foraging. You've been foraging for 15 hours. Where's the goods, homie? And he was like, you know what? I heard some crazy stuff, man. Let me tell you something. I was on the dark side of the mountain, and then there was this noise, and and they were like, all that nonsense. All you ever do when you go out to forage is come back with less food than you should have. You never get your quota up, and then you come back with all this nonsense. That was the social media of the day. I saw Bear Claw and I saw Rubberfoot, and they were over there fighting, and I was focusing on that and focusing on that. But here's the thing. The laser focus guy would get eaten because he didn't pay attention to his surroundings. But the guy that looked around and was always looking and paying attention to every little thing going around, especially the negative things, especially the harmful things, That guy came back, and after he got cussed out, he'd go in the thatch hut and he'd go reproduce and pass his DNA on because he made it back. So now, I know y'all think I'm full of it, but this is evolutionary theory of why human beings, being the prime, because some of y'all think we were created. But I'm here to crush your delusions. We evolved from lesser primates. We didn't evolve from gorillas. We didn't evolve from chimpanzees. We didn't evolve from orangutans and boas. You mean to tell me we can't? Man, go look up. If you want to be an anti-evolutionarist, at least study and know the basic tenets of evolution. You know, of natural selection. But as we evolved, it is theorized that the characteristics of paying attention to nonsense, paying attention to things in your periphery, paying attention to things that aren't really central to who you are or what you're doing, is actually beneficial. Or at one time was beneficial, back when humans were not at the top of the food chains and we didn't have all these tools and technology to aid us in navigating the world. You had to pay attention to stuff that shouldn't really matter. That's not central to what your central goal is. And those are the guys who made it back to the village to reproduce. Or those are the guys that are like, listen, this guy can't focus. Let him stay back with the children, and we'll go out. Let him stay back with the children early, and we'll go out so we can focus. He's gonna mess up the mammoth hunt. Mammoth's gonna get away because he ain't focusing, he ain't carrying his in. So those guys, even if it's not genetic, they would stay back with the children and the elderly and pass on their tendencies, teaching and playing with the children, and imprinting the children with that distraction. So I don't get mad. I'm saying all that to say I don't get mad at people from watching toe-sucking videos, twerk videos, or sharing delusional Black Hebrew videos and chuckling. Or watching, the countless number of fight videos, hood fight, bum fight. I don't get mad at you for that. It's hardwired into us to pay attention to nonsense and things that are outside of our central goal. But because we're not strictly beings of instinct, we can develop rituals to help hone our focus. We can come up with ideologies and practices and protocols. So as you share that stuff, try to have a ratio for yourself. I say 5-to-1, but I'm down for a 1-to-1 ratio. If you share a toe-sucking video, share one of the archives of the Bro Diallo Show. And if Bro Diallo Show ain't your forte, then fine. Go share, a Umar video, Polite video, Boyce Watkins, Yvette Carver. If that's not, but to me, that's more nonsense. I mean, hell, if that's what you think is insight, then go ahead and share it. Just stick to toe sucking and twerking video. I'm just saying, as adults, as grown folks, let's set an example for those. And archive media, this stuff is in the stratosphere. It's in the cloud. There might be alien species that pick up this signal thousands of light years away. And it's like, yeah, well, this guy, he's got some toe-sucking content, but he has also, shared a lot of insights on environmental justice, on holistic health, very, very, very interested in policing policy. That's a fully formed human being there, a fully evolved, advanced bipedal primate right there. That's all I'm asking, because I'm getting sick of y'all sharing, and I'm sick of looking at this nonsense and seeing 15 million views for something that's utter nonsensical. And then a researcher, a scholar, or true, some real analysis, 48 views on YouTube. Come on. And I'm not. This ain't respectability politics. This is basic survival. This is basic survival. So let's have an intellect. What do we call it? A radical ratio, intellectual ratio, menticide ratio. Make that commitment to yourself. Ain't no way for me to see. But I'm just sick of every time it's something that's utter nonsense or utterly debasing of black people. It's just everywhere, and it's given all the attention. And you people, the main people, I never get negativity from the person who produces the negativity. or the problematic or the sexist or the racist. It's always people denouncing it that are giving it the legs. I don't understand that. Do you know how much stuff I come across and be like, this is utter nonsense. I would never share this. I don't want to give it attention. I'm not going to click on it. You know how often I do that? And I don't care what it is. Even if it's like the majority, the people that are like, oh, they're trying to indoctrinate our community into homosexuality and the gay agenda. I never hear about the gay agenda from actual gay people. I never get gay content from actual gay people. And the majority of the gay agenda and the gay content that reaches my life in social media comes from the straight pride people, the anti-gay, the homophobes or anti-homosexual people. That's who's the number one propagator of this nonsense. The main people that share it are the people who claims, oh, look at all this gay media. We got too much gay media. Oh, there's gays are everywhere. I've shared 1,500 links of gayness today. Like, you're the gay agenda. You're the one advancing the gay agenda. Gay people just out here gaying it up, but they ain't sharing it with me. I ain't got nothing gay from no gay person yet. All my gay stuff, all my gay content comes from homophobes. And it doesn't even come with any analysis, any critique. They just say, look at this, and look at this, all these men's in leather. All these men's with feathers and bustiers marching and switching. Look at it. Oh, it's terrible. Don't look away. It's horrible. Ooh, look. It's just weird to me. It's weird to me. I mean, I saw one irritated genie or black respectability movement or black, I think, whatever it is. And dude was like, literally had put on a gay burlesque show. Just putting up all this gay, look at that man, and look at those men in dresses and makeups, and look at those men in high heels. Look at it, it's terrible, it's terrible. Like, dude, you think so? You might want to, like Dick Gregory said, get in the corner and check your stuff out. So I'm saying, even whatever your cause is, whatever you're against, it's just kind of weird. And yes, I'm a vegan. So yeah, from time to time, especially around the holidays, you'll see me sharing pictures of mutilated animals, of disease-infested animals, of animals standing literally knee-deep in their own urine and feces. And telling people, the orgy of murder and slaughter and unnecessary death that's related to the meat industry. But I tell you, for every image I'm going to share of cattle at the feedlot with tumors, cattle with their intestines hanging out of their anuses and dead piglets laying in their own mother's vomit and feces. I'm going to share you pictures of organic arugula. I just shared yesterday. I'm going to share pictures of health, wellness, and try to encourage people in vegan foods and my experiences with that, health and wellness, and I'm going to instruct you. And if I do share you insights about the corporate food industry and chronic disease, morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, sclerosis, atherosclerosis, a stroke, if I'm going to share you that, I'm going to give you some information to get somewhere away from that point. I'm going to give you some resources on how to counter these diseases, how to prevent them, natural ways to treat them. I'm not just going to be like, look at this horror, look at this nightmare, and leave it at that. So I try to follow the ratio. If I fall short, believe at least I'm trying to develop some type of social media protocol to combat menticide. And a lot of stuff y'all think y'all in here denouncing, y'all actually perpetuating, and it's kind of absurd to me. And I got feminists, so-called black feminist. To me, a feminist is a feminist. What's the difference between a Nazi and a neo-Nazi? And I ain't saying feminism is Nazism. I just think it's absurd for you to try to rebrand an established ideology. Why not just start? But feminists share more sexist content. Or if I got online and I say, these hoes ain't loyal, or these women need to stop wearing acrylic nails and perms, it'll go viral. But if I did a show on black women and the high maternal mortality rate and the high infant mortality rate, and I brought a research, an investigative journalist, black woman on the air, who also had in her personal testimony and how the hospitals are literally killing our women and children in their most vulnerable stage at the time of giving birth. A woman is most vulnerable and a baby is most vulnerable at the time of birth. Feminists didn't share that. Feminists didn't engage with it. They're all about, oh, empowering women. But I get out here, these hoes ain't loyal. I pimp these hoes and smack these tricks. Feminists will share it and it will go, they will share it 15 million times. You know, it's like you show a picture of a black man holding a black woman in a dog leash. Will get more traffic than a black man and black woman standing together respectfully in a loving embrace. And I know I understand it's evolutionary, but damn. So if you're a feminist, I ain't saying don't share these, what do you call them, ashy, photep, whatever y'all call, share them dudes, even if I fall into that classification according to your analysis, and look at this, look what this horrible black man did, look what that horrible black man did. At least say, hey, black women, reproductive health, you know, neonatal health. Here's some insights on some doula, on home birthing, on birthing centers. At least share that too. I've put out a lot of, for lack of a better classification, because to me, I don't think our struggle is gender specific. So I think anything that's pro-woman is pro-man and vice versa. You know, you can't help one without helping the other. You can't harm one without harming the other. But y'all, break it down differently. And I'm just saying, why the hell didn't that article, even if you didn't want to share the Bro Diallo show, even if you don't like Bro Diallo, I gave several links to the articles and the research of black women being harmed by the medical system, and how black women, resources for black women to do harm, some serious harm reduction, literally saving the lives of mothers and saving the lives of our newborn offspring. Got no traction. No traction whatsoever. No engagement, no shares. But then I shared something critical of the feminist ideology and movement and agenda. Thousands, literally. I turn off notifications. Thousands. Oh yeah, and when you perceive that I said something negative about women or negative about feminism, and some of y'all can't just bring yourselves to separate feminism and women are two different things. Feminism is an agenda, it's an ideology, it's an analysis, it's even a course of study. Women are biological beings who can engage this, who can support it, who can lead it, who can join it, who can adopt it, who can critique it, who can reject it. But saying to hell with feminism is not the same as saying to hell with women. Then you have to say, well, why would you reject feminism? And then we can critique the ideology, the history, the agenda, the policies, even the curriculum for women's studies. And I could do all of that without attacking women. But if you aren't ideologically a feminist, but you're a cult, you're a part of the feminist cult as opposed to the feminist movement, then you can't make that separation. And you think, how dare a man even utter the word feminism? And a lot of feminists listen to black women as I totally try to ignore everything you have to say. As I denounce your ability to even speak to me or speak on issues relevant to me, I want you to listen to me. Good luck with that. You can go to hell. But wait, let me back it on up. All I'm saying is, even feminists, for every time you share something of a man abusing a woman, exploiting a woman, dehumanizing a woman, share some resources and support for black women or women in general, or however your things come. You have a ratio. And like I said, for a long time. I'm like, this article needs to go viral. This is very important. And I shared this woman's research, her article. I had her come on the Diallo Show and interviewed her about how infant and maternal mortality rates, black women are dying at giving birth at higher rates than most third world countries than they were 2 decades ago. Babies are dying, low birth rates. And then they've got this diabetes, this special pregnancy diabetes, and women are getting lifelong injuries to their reproductive organs and to their overall health and well-being after giving a child, something that should be celebrated, something that is a monumental moment in your life becomes a source of debilitating pain or hardship or even death. And I'm like, this just go viral. Hell, you ain't even got to share it connected to me. Here's the link, the New York Times article. Here's a link to the journalist. And I'm telling feminists, you can contact this woman directly and not even have to include me if I'm problematic. But it didn't go anywhere. And the same feminists that didn't help share this article, that didn't help get this insight and information and research out to black women in the black community, are the same black women that are out here that shared that stupid idiot talking about black woman, submit to your man. Shared that idiot clown. And I'm telling you, Umar gets more coverage from his detractors than his supporters. If you see Umar get 1 million views, 600 to 700,000 of those views and shares came from people who don't agree with him. Y'all hustling backwards. And I ain't saying don't share Umar. But you could also share Dr. Marimba Ani. You can share Dr. Weems, the Africana womanist. There are, if you got a problem with men in general, even pro-woman men, there are plenty. I don't see, even, and I don't agree with much of what she says, but even Bell Hooks. I don't even see y'all sharing Bell Hooks insights and articles and research and videos. How you say you're a feminist and you got 1,500 black Hebrew Israelites, you got 1,500 Umar links on your social media, on your blog or Facebook page or your Twitter, and you ain't got nothing from empowered black women, scholarly black women, liberationist black women. You might, a couple of months ago, put up a profile picture of Winnie Mandela, but you don't even share Winnie's words. It's just images. She had to die to get there. So I'm saying we need a revolutionary social media ratio, a black social media ratio. And I'm not saying share positivity. I'm not saying share Will Smith info. I'm saying share insights, even if they're hard insights. Give legitimate resources. Give legitimate connections for people to say, hey, if I click on this link, I will get access to information, or I'll get access to resources in my community that I can use to address a certain issue, to improve things, to reduce harm, or empower my people. And I'm about to use that information to empower my community, to help reduce harm in my community right after I finish clicking on this toe-sucking video. And I got 2 more twerk videos in my queue, and then right after that, revolution. That's all I'm asking. And I don't think that's too much to ask. But it takes some effort and some intellectual effort and some intellectual honesty. Moving on, I'd like to give congratulations to Nicolas Maduro, the current president of Venezuela. The Bolivarian Revolution still stands. If you've read John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and I might have to go down and talk about how they destabilize nations, how the global status quo is maintained. John Perkins is a whistleblower. He's a former Fed, a former agent who went around undermining governments, undermining political parties, illegally engaging in subversion of democracy and sovereignty of other nations. And then he had some grandkids, and he was like, I don't know how my grandkids will survive in such a world. So it wasn't even a very noble thing that he did. It was self-serving and self-preservation that he's like, I've got to expose this system of economic hitmen. Now, another thing, there had already been a bunch of black scholars who are saying, they're coming for me. The man is taking me down, And then a lot of black people are like, oh, you just complain. You just want an excuse. You don't follow Will Smith's formula for success. But now here's a white man who not only acknowledged that the man was taking us down, but says, I was one of the mans who took y'all down. You know? So Venezuela right now is under the second stage. The first stage of taking down a sovereign nation or a sovereign leader or a progressive or revolutionary movement outside of U.S. borders. Step one was the economic hitman. You try to pay people off or you try to inflate their opposition. The step two are what they call the jackals. And these are the saboteurs that go beyond trying to move money around and using propaganda, but they use the money, they use the propaganda, but they also elevate into violence, but small scale violence, internalized and hidden violence, clandestine violence. And then next is the military. And the Bolivarian Revolution, I mean, there's been a couple of times I was like, well, it's not going to succeed. And everybody was counting them out. But shout out to the Venezuelan people, and especially the Afro, a lot of black folks in Venezuela. The Afro Venezuelans, the native Venezuelans, and even hell, the Euro Venezuelans that support the Bolivarian revolution. And if we're going to say Afro Latino, we're going to start saying Euro Latino and native Latino. If black folks got to carry a title, all y'all going to carry the damn title. So what is you? So Maduro, I believe he's what they call Mestizos. He's native and Euro Latino. The late great Hugo Chavez, he was native Latino. So let's if we're gonna play, black folks ain't gonna be playing this game. We ain't gonna be in these boxes by ourselves no more. And we'll be in our box, but we're gonna get a box for y'all too. So let's divide all these Latin American folks up: Afro Latino, Native Latino, and Euro Latino. While we just gotta carry the extra. And I ain't against it, but I mean, like you, hey, everybody getting something. Everybody. So shout out again, the Venezuelan, and I think soon. I'm gonna put this here. Um, Very soon I'm going to try to talk about the Bolivarian Revolution. It's something to revisit, something that I think black people struggling for liberation in the United States and on the African continent for neo-decolonization against neo-colonization. Um, the Bolivarian Revolution is a very wealthy source of insight and even methods for getting revolution. Now, of course, they have certain advantages that we don't have in the United States in terms of access to resources. But again, uh, I'm very happy about the Bolivarian Revolution as being able to be sustained. Um, and now they're doing better actually because Obama was aggressively against Maduro, aggressively against Hugo Chavez, and he's a competent imperialist, very dangerous man. Obama is a beloved tyrant, and they endured. They survived Obama, and I didn't think they would. And so Trump is a little less competent. He's more. He might be more. I don't know. He's still. I mean, he's trying to catch up and surpass Obama's bombing record. But Obama did so much bombing. He set such a high standard for mass death that Trump is going to have to work extra hard to surpass Obama's atrocities. But he's trying. It ain't for lack of trying. Oh, one more thing. Beauty pageant. The Miss America pageant has stated that they're no longer going to have women wear swimsuits, that the evening gown portion of the contest will be canceled in terms of women will be able to wear whatever they want, and they don't want it to be a pageant anymore. It's not a beauty pageant, it's a beauty competition now. And now you got white incels, white right-wing conservatives crying about how feminists have ruined the Miss America pageant and Miss Universe pageant. How and but the only thing I mean, hey, I'm going to say it. I don't know any uh, cisgendered heterosexual men that follow any pageants. I don't even care if it's Miss America. I don't even care. And I know all the swimsuit editions, but these men are using this saying, oh, feminists and women have ruined the Miss America. Like, but men don't watch the Miss America pageant. Now, I think the only men that watch the Miss America pageant are gay men and serial killers. And I know somebody left their phone here. I should answer it. Disrupting my show. Hello? I'm sorry? Hello? I can't hear. One moment. Hello? I'm sorry?
This is China. Hi, how are you?
China? Who are you trying to reach?
I think I was trying to reach John.
Oh, well, I have John's phone, but I'm not John. He left it here in the
Okay.
studio.
Oh, okay.
So if you,
Just when he. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, you're interrupting my show. I'm live on the air right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry about that. Yeah,
Oh, it's
this is
okay.
the number he gave me. Okay.
No, this is definitely a correct number, but he left his phone here. Oh, yes, here's his ID. So I'm going to leave his phone here. So you tell him, when you get him, tell him that his phone is in the studio and he left it in the
Okay.
studio on live. So um, I have his phone. I'm
Okay.
going to leave it right here on the desk. And I hope you get in contact with him soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye bye. See, I'm a multitasker. Yep, John left his phone here. John is a busy man. But John, if you're listening, I just answered your phone. I don't know who that was. You're lucky I'm a married man because I'd have probably had to put the Mac on it. Steal your girl, Mr. Steal your girl. But I'm married, so, you know, I'm going to let you have your girl, John. Stop leaving your phone. You never know what happens. Keep up with your things. Oh, and so anyway, right wing white men are, I need to behave more professionally. I got to get it together. Um, right wing white men are just outraged about the Miss America pageant because they said that feminists have ruined the Miss America pageant. And I think they don't care about the Miss America pageant. They just want an opportunity to attack women. Because most of the people that I know that follow it are women. That I know that follow it. I don't know any men that get their rocks off on watching the beauty pageants, even though they do have swimsuit editions and all that. The last time I paid any attention to any pageant is when Steve Harvey announced the wrong winner. And I watched a couple of video clips of that. That's the only interactions I've ever had with any pageant in my life. I don't even know what pageant it was. And like I said, Donald Trump, men like Donald Trump, dirty men. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think it's because it's seriously. Um, if you read Neely Fuller and the code system concept, he said that black people especially, but all people, he said that pageants and beauty competitions were a cornerstone of global white domination. Or he calls it white supremacy. I don't like using the supremacy in reference to savagery, to brutal conquest. I don't think you have to be supreme to be a savage. Anyone can be a savage brute, a mass murderer. Doesn't even take that much talent. In fact, I think that the murderers are subhuman, not supreme human, not superhuman, but subhuman. So global white subhumanity, global white savagery. So I don't like that connotation. So I don't like saying it, but for accuracy. He says that beauty pageants are a cornerstone, getting people to judge on a superficial level, getting people to classify looks and what's appropriate behavior, and it supports the status quo. And Neely Fuller goes so far as to saying that all black people should refrain from participating in or watching beauty pageants. And I mean, he gives a lot of other stuff on the political and social, economic, and even military in terms of violence. But it's just an interesting section of the book of an overall interesting book. I mean, I have a lot of issues with the book, but you know, that's something. Whatever you want to do with that. It's just if you find a dude that's out here griping about the beauty pageant, you know, kind of remind me of that delivered. I have been delivered, dude. You're trying to seem manly, and you out here crying about what women want to do with a woman's pageant. That just seems kind of weird to me. I liked all those sexy women's in those bathing suits. Like, did you really though? I just find it hard. You know, you're trying to be manly. You're trying to denounce feminism. You're trying to denounce women in their sensitive ways and act like women have ruined the Miss American pageant for us manly men. I just don't see how y'all get that to jive. And that racist cracker Mark Dice is doing all these videos about how women have ruined it. And he's telling people to go, you can go to watch the Miss Brazil pageant and these other foreign and Miss Russia pageant where the women are still objectified and forced to march across the stage like cattle. And he says now the Miss America pageant is going to be a bad pageant. Like, what adult man or even young man watches pageants? Even if you like seeing women in swimsuits, I mean, you're gonna wade through all that other stuff to get to the swim. It just doesn't seem. It's just nonsense. News of the day. Do with it what you will. I also want to send out congratulations to Sister Alice Johnson. Trump let her go. But let me get to the topic because I got some other issues here. Chicago Police Department shooting unarmed black men in the back and planting guns on them. Detaining young black boys and forcing them to urinate on themselves through being so frightened of the police, the murderous police, the child murdering, child exploiting police. But let me get to the topic because I'm indulging myself too much. The topic of today's show was soiled solidarity, and I do have a recording I definitely want to play in the last hour that you definitely don't want to miss, and one of my favorite contemporary scholars. And I don't know why we love dead scholars so much. Maybe we'll start to give this brother his just desserts and start to honor his scholarship once he's dead. But I got some info from Khalil Gillibrand that I want to share. But I want to talk about soiled solidarity. Because we got all this stuff. I had once said that black people have been the king of intersectionality. We were intersecting before there was a word for it, before there was a meme or a hashtag for it. But black people have been getting, from the day we were forced, kidnapped, and brought to this country through the Ma'afa, through the greatest human atrocity the planet Earth has ever experienced. Black people have been forging alliances with every group, with every movement, and every single time, consistently, without failure. Black people have been betrayed by our allies. We have failed to get our just rewards, our just concessions. We never got a full return on our investment. So that's why I call it soiled solidarities. Because that's what it is. It's soiled, it's marked, it's broken. And I call it the tragic history of black alliances. And the reason I'm saying this is because I support solidarity. I think it is prudent for black people to forge alliances. But before we can start to have actual functional alliances, we have to understand the proper way to construct alliances, to articulate our solidarity, and we got to know when to hold them and know when to fold away, know when to walk away, know when to run. There is no such thing as a permanent allies, and there is no such thing as free, unanswered solidarity. Everything comes, we put more terms and conditions on our damn phone contracts than we put on our allegiances and our solidarity packs. Everything's going to come with terms and conditions. And we're going to have to start telling every other group that we unite with that they're going to have to kick in. We ain't just here for the good, out of the goodness of our hearts. What's all them songs? Love don't pay the rent or something. We got all kind of R&B songs about how just feelings ain't enough. We got to get above and beyond feelings. But when it comes to our political movements, to our agenda, to liberating ourselves and establishing a legacy for our descendants, All of a sudden, we forget that, you got to pay to play. Love don't pay the rent. Or whatever. I don't know them songs, but I know there's dozens of my mama listened to every one of them whole money, love ain't enough songs. So I'll say this. Let's start with the very first act of solidarity black people engaged in this soil after coming here. The first people we had formal and informal solidarity with, and we forged an alliance with, was indentured servants. And I don't think African people understand the history of indentured servitude coming out of Europe and that was transplanted here to the New World. Indentured servants were chattel slaves. What the bumble club? Indentured servants, this dude's phone, man. I've never had an iPhone. I've never been able, I'm gonna see if I can turn it off. It's over here beeping. I can't. Whatever. Try to put it over there. Indentured servants. How do you turn off a freaking iPhone? Man, this is crazy. There's like one button. Man, y'all okay. There we go. Steve Jobs is playing y'all on this iPhone stuff. I digress. Indentured servants were chattel slavery. I have to always remind black people, because we always run around, they do this because we black. They don't give us the black. Listen, it's nothing personal. And I wish it was. But black people do not have a unique relationship with whites. Everything they have done to us, slavery, genocide, dehumanization, lynching, mutilation, systematic rape, bombing, everything they've done to us, they do to each other. And they do to anybody. If every non-white person vanished from the earth tomorrow, we all got raptured. Do you think this would be a peaceful planet? Do you think the sweatshops would close? Do you think they'd stop manufacturing depleted uranium rounds and nuclear bombs? No, because right now, the U.S. nuclear arsenal, you think it's only aimed at Africa? Or Latin America? Or Asia? Right now, the United States has nuclear missiles trained on the UK, on France, on Canada, its closest allies. Perpetual non-ending warfare. And it don't matter who gets it. Black people were not the first people who were strung up, hung, had their genitals mutilated. And then they create artwork around pictures of it. They were doing that in medieval Europe. Well, she's a witch, string her up. He's a warlock, string her up. He's a Catholic, string him up. He's a Protestant, string him up. I'm telling you, white folks didn't arrive at the shores of Africa or the Americas and say, look at all these black people. I'm going to invent this thing called slavery. And I'm going to invent this thing called shackles and chains, and invent this thing called colonization. And I'm going to impose it on these people. Everything they did when they got to Africa and the New World, they were already practicing and perfected in Europe on each other. So when Africans were brought here, there were already slaves here called indentured servants. But the men, if you had an indentured servant and your indentured servant gave birth to a child, then you owned that child. It says here, before the Civil War, slaves and indentured servants were considered personal property. And they or their descendants could be sold or inherited like any other personal property. Like other property, human chattel was governed largely by laws of individual states. Generally, these laws considered indentured servants and slaves did not differentiate. White people were owned by other white people. And black people came to this country and was like, listen, this is new to us. We don't have indentured servitude and we don't have chattel slavery. And even if someone is held in bondage and we capture them in a warfare, we don't own them, we don't take away their human property, and we don't own their children. And nobody is born a slave in our culture, and nobody dies a slave. You belong to yourself, even if you have obligations to meet, even if you're under incarceration or being held against your will. We don't deny your humanity and we don't deny you rights. So when the Africans came into this new thing called chattel slavery, and I'm gonna go get that book. I gotta find that book on the shelves. I hate going on my. I need to organize my bookshelf. I got too many books just be throwing them up there like that. But in the European explorers came to Africa and saw a phenomenon they didn't understand or recognize. They didn't understand our governing systems. They didn't understand our social relations. So they just superimposed what they did know on top of what we did. And they would look at someone and say, well, I don't know this person's role in society. I'm just going to call them a slave. Even though, and they would literally say, that guy, those people, that classification of people, they're slaves in name only. Meaning that we call them slaves, but they're not treated or they don't interact with each other in any way that's similar to how we have slaves. And I got to post this article from the Library of Congress. White folks tell on themselves, slavery and indentured servants. And it'll show you that slaves and indentured servants were damn near the same thing. And a disobedient indentured servant could be beaten, and an indentured servant that committed repeat offenses could be put to death for disobeying the person they're indentured to. And between 1630 and 1783, which is after the Revolutionary War, a full 2/3 of all white people in this country were not full citizens. They were indentured. Now, there were different levels of indentured, just like you had house niggas and field niggas. You had urban slavery, and then you had rural and agricultural slavery, that the laws that governed them and what they could and couldn't do, it was the same thing for indentured. But the vast majority, if you weren't a governor or a lord or a nobleman, the only way for you to come to the so-called New World and get out of the cesspool, the rotten, disease, pestilent cesspool that was Europe, before Europe was able to steal the world's resources and build itself up, steal the world's science, steal the world's architectural techniques and hygienic practices, people would have done anything to get out of Europe, to come to an unfamiliar alien place. Because that's how bad Europe was. And they would literally sell themselves into servitude. And a lot of them, just like in Africa, they were shanghaied. They were hit over there. They go to the bar drinking late one night and get bust across the back of the head. The next thing they know, they wake up in the ship and they've signed some contract. They don't know how to read or write, but they got their thumbprint on a contract where they're going to be owned by another white man. And when we came here, we forged a solid alliance with indentured servitudes, the rednecks, the hillbillies, the honkies, the poor white people that didn't have noble blood, that owned no property. And we fought with them. We tried to support them. That was the first formal alliance. And we know how that played out. When they came up with the Fugitive Slave Act, and they were like, listen, we don't have jobs for white folks. So when white folks don't have jobs, the white elites give the white masses jobs policing blacks. It's like when they said we're going to ship all the factories overseas, we're going to shut down the mines, we're going to open up prisons in rural white America. The same damn relationship. So, I mean, do I even have to talk about how we got played? In the 1600s, we were allies with the poor white folks. Black people and white people would run away together. That's why they had to make the anti-miscegenation laws. It had nothing to do with blood. It had to do with economic and political alliances. It had to do with national security and military tactics. It had none. The white folks didn't care about mixing their blood. They were raping every woman all over the world. They don't care, white folks, if they cared so damn much about mixing blood. They used that as that was a political tool. Okay, blacks and whites can't mix. But black people and white people in the early 1600s, the mid and late 1600s, indentured servitude lasted in this country officially till 1917. And they had other things they called it. Indentured servitude, debtor's prison or debt slavery. Up until 1917, white people were held in bondage against their will and could be owned by another white person. They indiscriminate. And white people only came up on our backs by betraying us, the white working class, the white indentured side, the non-noble class, the landless whites. sold us out and say, listen, they went to white people and said, we're either going to unite with the blacks or we're going to unite with the white elites who've been exploiting us for generations. And they rather unite with their white tormentors than get free with the other black oppressed. And that's they sold us out. So that's one of the first soiled solidarities that we had. We foolishly thought that white people would join us based on their class and status, as opposed to uniting with white folks on their skin color. And to this very day, you got poor white people voting against their own interests because they think it's going to hurt black people. Rural white America is drowning in poverty, in ignorance, and under a mountain of meth, opioid crisis, and a toothless, uneducated, trailer park dwelling redneck will be like, yeah, I might be a lot of things, but I'm not a nigger. I'm like, good luck with that, not a nigger. If that's all you got, your only claim in life is that you ain't black, good luck with that, white boy. But I tell you what, y'all playing yourselves harder than y'all play us. And the white people didn't even, and white folks been poor. The majority of, like I said, indentured servitude lasted until 1917, where white people were literally chattel slaves. White people were getting whipped, and hung too. But white people don't know their history. That's why we need white history. We talk about a Black History Month. No people are more delusional and ignorant of their history than white people in the United States. They got so many illusions. Just like black people love to act like we're all descendants of African kings and queens, white folks act like they're all descendants of the founding fathers and the revolutionary fighters in the American Revolution, when most of y'all were just peasants who had no say in nothing. And your great white ancestor, you like to think your mother's husband was the lord of the manor. The man your father was indebted to raped your mother and impregnated is the father of your grand. Y'all just as mixed up, but because you're all white, it don't show it's stronger. But a lot of poor white people got a lot of noble blood. They call prima nocta. The tradition of prima nocta, where the lord of the land would be able to sleep with any bride in his jurisdiction. And they brought that here from Europe. So the white peasant, the white slave, the word slave is short for Slav, which is a whole millions and tens of millions of white folks of the Slavic tradition. Slavery started. Chattel slavery started in Europe. Slavery, as we understand it, started in Europe. It was a white on white crime. And we got nothing out of that allegiance. We fought and died with these white indentured servants, and the first opportunity, and these debt slaves, and in these debt prisons, we fought with these white people, and at the first opportunity, they sold us out. And we still running around in 2018, after 1615, 1630s, from the 1600s into 2018, we still thinking, oh, we can unite with poor whites. We have to reach out to war in common. We got to reach out a hand. We didn't reach out the hand 300-400 years ago. First time we reach it out, they slap it away. The second time we reach it out, they chop it off. And now we reaching out a nub. We got to reach out a shoulder because they done chopped off our hands, forearm, and humerus. And we still reaching out. And we don't even come with terms and conditions. Say, look, white people, we have no reason to trust you. When you come to us in solidarity, when you come to us saying that we have common cause, you're working class, you're a Democrat, and you're anti-Trump, and I'm anti-Trump, therefore whites and blacks, let's join hands. Like, nope. Terms and conditions may apply because you have a long history of selling us out, or have a long history that when we fight the white elites and get concessions, you take everything and run and leave me holding nothing but a good feeling in my heart that I can't pass on or feed my babies with. So I ain't even saying you people who want to go out here and have white allies in your black struggles, fine, but at least know this history. That they're going to sell you out. There's never been a black-white alliance where whites didn't sell us out at first given opportunity. And they would even sell us out to hurt themselves. They're even willing. They're willing to shoot themselves through the foot in order to shoot you in the ass from the back, or shoot you in the back. For whatever reason. You just better recognize. And if you're going to still play this, if you think you're skillful enough, and you're more skillful or more insightful than our ancestors, where you can forge a competent alliance with the poor whites and white working class, just at least know the histories and lay down the terms and conditions. And no, you better have a life vest on. The whole time you on that same bus or same boat as white folks, you better be ready to jump before they are. So yeah, white people come to us. We were enslaved. We struggled too. Yeah, you did struggle. You were enslaved. And guess what? The only reason you got out of it by selling us out on our backs. Because the white elites gave you a fraction of the wealth they stole from us. That's how you came up. You didn't come up through hard work. You came up through hard theft, through hard murder, through hard oppression. That's how you came up, but not hard work. And I need to say the king of these dudes of solidarity is Crispus Attucks, the first black man to shed his blood for the establishments of the Union, the 13 colonies in the eventual United States. A black man. Solidarity with whites. And say we are the colonists. We're being colonized by the British Crown. The black Crispus Attucks was an anti-colonist, fighting to free white people from colonization. And how did they honor him? By enslaving his children and his descendants, his offspring. So I'm saying that was the very first soil solidarity. We don't remember this history because white people don't want to acknowledge this history. Most white people that came here before the peak migration, the second wave of migration, most white people that were here before 1880 are descendants of slaves, of indentured white people, of debt slaves and indentured slaves. Y'all don't come from no nobility. Y'all don't come from anything of class. Your mothers were whores, raped, and murdered and mutilated. Your fathers had no dignity, no standing, no standards, no property. And instead of standing up and fighting for justice, you decided to bow down and embrace your oppressors and betray the people that helped you get justice. And that's just the first solidarity. I'm good. That's the 1600s. And then after the white people sold us out, what did we do? What's the second soil solidarity? Blacks and Native Americans. African people saw that the Native Americans were being also enslaved in the United States. There was between, again, you can go to the Library of Congress or any other record, 2.5 to 5.5 million enslaved Native Americans. You know, I'm taking your land. I'm going to murder every one of you that I can. And a few of you left reigning around, I'm putting you in chains. And so black people decided we were too far from our homeland. So let's escape and join the native populations. And we went to the native people and said, yo, we're going to help you fight. Help to save your country, help to save your land, and get these invaders who kidnapped us and who are currently exterminating you. And the natives were like, yeah, let's throw down the tomahawk. And it brought a lot of African people. But then the white man, again, just like he said, well, the white elites were like, well, I'm going to buy off the indentured servants. I'm going to buy off the white slaves to fight the black slaves. They went to the Native Americans and said the same thing. We're going to recognize 5 nations. And the civilized tribe, we're going to give you sovereignty, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, but one thing you got to do is, if a nigga show up in your borders, send that nigger back. And if he fights too hard, then send back his ears. Send back his scalp. And that way, we'll give you a section of your own country. We'll give you some guns and some whiskey and some blankets. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And at that juncture, Native American nations could have said, hell no, we'll fight you to the end. These blacks are in the same boats we are. They're enslaved. They're being murdered. They're being dehumanized. We're going to fight with them. No, they say, give me the rum. Give me the blankets. Wink. Give me the rifles. And give me a reservation. Give me my little corner of this. The whole place was mine, and I'm going to negotiate for a corner of my own nation. Give me a fraction of what was once all mine. And they sold us the hell out. And then the Native Americans began to engage in the slave trade. They began to own slaves, buy slaves, and up to the lead up of the Civil War, Claude Anderson in his research said the number one murderer of black people in the United States were Native Americans. Especially the Native Americans that were fighting against, whenever they had a dispute, when you go to war with somebody, when you got a dispute with somebody, and you can't kill them, you want to destroy their property. You want to destroy their infrastructure. Like when the United States went into Iraq, they bombed the oil fields. They bombed the railroad lines, the pipelines. I want to destroy your resources. I want to destroy your infrastructure so it will reduce your capacity to fight me back. So what was the most valuable resources to white people? African slaves. And since the Native Americans had accepted that black people were subhuman, that we were property, that we were chattel, they could kill us to deny the white man property and to deny him his capacity to fight the white man. To fight the natives. So the natives started to embrace supremacism. And on the Trail of Tears, when over 16,000 Choctaws, Chickasaws, Native Americans were marched from their lands into the desolate West. Out of that 16,000, over 5,000 of them were Africans. And they were the ones. You talk about what Native Americans tell us, the Trail of Tears. They didn't carry their own goddamn bags. They didn't carry their own stuff. The African, those Choctaws, those Chickasaw Native American tribes, nations, owned African slaves. And when they were forced off their land after they made that deal with the devil to sell us out, they made us carry their stuff. And you see all these murals, all these paintings surrounding the Trail of Tears, and they don't show you the black Africans. And now some idiotic black people see those Africans that when they do get the record, there were a quarter of the people who went on the Trail of Tears were black, and they get the delusion, oh, they weren't Africans, they were Native Americans. No, you were property of Native Americans. And all you black people, I got Indian in my family. Yeah, you do. You got Indian in your family the same way you got a little Irish and a little British and a little Italian in your family through brutal rape and colonization and slavery. That's the same way you got the Indian blood. It's the same way you got that white blood. And if you want to embrace that or try to build on that, then you some kind of fool. The Native Americans sold us out, even in just like the white working, the white indentured class. They sold us out even to their own detriment. And what happened in 2011? After generations of raping black folks, of mixing the blood, because the Native Americans didn't have the strict anti-miscegenation. They would reproduce with their property. So they would impregnate their African slaves. And sometimes the child, it's the luck of the draw. You would be defined as a slave, or they might envelope you into the tribe, depending on the sentiments of the owner of the African. And that's how you have black Native Americans. You came from Africa. You're not indigenous to this land. I'm sorry. I know you want to be anything but African, but hey, if you want to live that fantasy, go on over there. But don't try that shit with the Cherokees. Because Cherokees in 2011 officially banned black people from being in the nation. They kicked out their existing ones and say nobody else gets to join our tribe, even though they're bringing white folks into the lodges. It's another soil solidarity. So our first two formal allegiances is coming into this country with the indentured and debt slaves, white people, white Brits, white Protestants, white Anglo-Saxons. And over 2/3 of all the white people here were slaves. Now they all want to believe, oh, we came over on the Mayflower. We were all pilgrims and we were frontiersmen. Johnny Appleseed, that's a damn myth. And like I said, white people are more ignorant of their history, and they didn't have to go through centuries of being denied access to reading and writing and like we did. So it's more absurd. It should be more shameful how ignorant white people, how delusional white people are about their reality than black folks. But European whites were massively illiterate. And they still are willfully ignorant. Moving on. Then you have what was called. Oh, and one more little caveat. I think one of the best people who really, the history has been written. They kept relatively good records. Nobody, unless they want to be ignorant, should be ignorant of the history of African, of Native American ownership. Native Americans, as I said, bought slaves, sold our ancestors, bought our ancestors, and owned our ancestors. And they were some of the most proficient at capturing and returning our ancestors that ran away. And I know from the day we got here, black people, even up to today, have always shown solidarity, sympathy, and unity. And that's why you look at the Buffalo Soldiers. Like, what made those former slaves jump on those horses and head out west to chop the head off of Native Americans? Buffalo Soldier, dreadlock Rasta. I believe that a lot of those so-called Buffalo Soldiers knew that history better than we know it. So it wasn't about opening up the frontier. It was more about exacting vengeance. Just like when the Civil War, when Lincoln established his black brigades, and them brothers fought like hell and was killing every white folks they can get their hands on. Black men, black soldiers won the Civil War. Because it was a stalemate until that's the only reason Lincoln said, I'll never arm the slaves. 3 years later, please get those slaves guns so we can, before we lose this whole damn country, we save America. And don't even get me talk about the wars. So the third formal allegiances that we made were in what's called historically the second wave of immigration, which was from 1880 to 1940. This is when most white people got here, when almost 85% of all white people that live in this country now that are telling us to stand for the flag, African people was here 200 years before y'all got here. We didn't come here voluntarily, but we was here and we put down roots long before most white people even got here. Polish, Italian, most Jewish. Because and the only other white people that have been here as long as us are the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And if you're not a WASP, more likely than not, the average black person that you're telling to stand for the damn national anthem, being family and bloodlines go back more than 200 years in this country than you. And when you came here, when white people came here during the second wave, the gangs of New York, white men were running around in 1880. You had white men running around the United States talking about they're the Native Americans. That term was first applied to white people who came over on the first wave of immigration. And I hate saying immigration because it was an invasion. When you immigrate somewhere, you immigrate into the system, you obey the laws. You obey the customs. You respect the hierarchy. But when you invade a place, you blow it up. But we got to call white people the immigration, mass immigration, the Great Migration, Ellis Island, and this grand story when it's truly a nightmare. But that's when Central Europeans first came, when Western Europeans. There were already French colonies, there were Portuguese colonies in the New World. French, Portuguese, Spanish. How the hell can I forget the Spaniards? Spaniards, we think Spanish started in Latin America. That's how aggressive colonizers they were. But, there were some white folks that weren't in on the game. The Irish were under colonization in their own damn country, so they couldn't get in on the colonization games. The Italians were late to the party, even though, Cristobal Colon, some say he was of Jewish descent, ethnically or ethno-religiously a Jew, but nationally, his nationality was Italian. But remember, the Spaniards financed and gave him the boats. The Italians was like, well, we're good. So the Catholics and various ethnic groups that didn't come with the first wave of invasions, the white people are like, we got to bolster our numbers. Because black people are off the plantation, they're pissed off, they outproduce us, they know more. We spent the last 200 years building this country. And the white people are like, we don't know how to do nothing, and we don't want to be dependent on Africans, so let's open up the floodgates. And millions of Italians, Jews, Polish, Irish came here. And even though they brought them here to artificially inflate the numbers of white people and to sustain black people in a vulnerable minority position, they were started discriminating against them. There were signs going up all over the East Coast, the South, no Polacks, no Jews, no Irishmen, or Irish entered through the rear. Same stuff they did to us in Jim Crow. They Jim Crowed other white people. It's just a bit, and that's more obscene than if they were just doing it to us. And we have this myth in our minds of white people stick together. And we don't stick together. We're oppressed because we don't stick together. And white people have the power because their power does not derive from them sticking together. And you read, I just got a book I'm going to share online from Wesley Clark. You read white scholars. White people never ever. Find me where white people even said, well, our power is based in our unity. Pfft, that's rhetoric. Look at the actual practices. Read the Iceman's Inheritance. And get off of that white unity myth. But black people locked arms with the Italians. Black people locked arms. You even look at the gangs of New York, and the Irish gangs versus the WASP, the Protestants, the Irish Catholics versus the New England Protestants. And there was a brother standing there with the Irish, because the Irish were the ones who were oppressed, who were discriminated against. And there's a black man. They only had one black, but it was a lot of blacks and Irish were fighting neck and neck. And then the next thing you know, white folks are like, oh, we're vulnerable. We got an allegiance between the blacks and the Irish. So they went to the Irish and said, listen, you want to be white? You want your white card? And the white, not only, then the Irish, you know the term cop is short for copper. And why do we call cops copper? Or, yo, here come the cops, or here come the coppers? Because they used to make their badges out of copper. And it was associated in the patties. The patties was a derogatory term for the Irish. You say you're the paddy wagon. That's where they would load the Irish drunkards. Mass incarceration of a vulnerable, discriminated population. Sound familiar? Didn't start with us. Everything they did to us, they rehearsed and practiced and perfected on each other. Their savagery knows no limitation. Their savagery has no racial loyalty or no racial limitations. I don't know where this myth comes from. There's no evidence to back it up. They did it because we're black. They don't do things to us because we're black. They do it because they're white. And anybody can get it. Everybody has gotten it. Name a population of people who have been spared this treatment. And I'll give you anywhere, even the most blue-eyed, blonde-haired, beloved of Swiss. Name a people. It's time we got to understand this if we're going to address it and correct it. And so the Irish became the coppers. And instead of putting Irish patties, the Irish, hey, there's a patty. Instead of putting them in we ended up black folks in the paddy wagon. And they used to tell the new second wave immigrants, the new Italians, the Eastern and Central European Jews, they used to tell them, we were the model minority. Blacks have been here and they've been through a lot, but they know how to behave themselves. They speak the language and they have adopted the customs. And they used to tell the white immigrants, look at the blacks if you want to learn how to get ahead in America. But they quickly cut that out. And so all the second wave immigrants that came through Ellis Island, that didn't speak the language, that were discriminated against, that were abused, and the women again, the men of higher stature, would hire white women to come in their house to be nursemaids and servants and rape them and disown the children, abuse them. And they were locking up Italians at high rates for vagrancy. And black people was like, they doing us the same way. Let's work together. And they were like, yeah, let's work with the blacks, in solidarity. And the second they was like, okay, we're ready to give out white cards, the white elite said, come on over here. You can stay with them and honor your allegiance, or you can sell them out and for a few trinkets. And what did they do? They sold us out without exception. Without exception. So, the first wave of invaders, the white indentured, the white debt slaves, sold us out. Native Americans sold us out. Then the second wave of European immigration between the years of 1880 and 1940. What did they do? They sold us out. And we're the ones that stood on the front lines and say, take down them signs. We love to share those signs that said colored only, or no colored folks, or whites only. But there's just as many signs that say no Japs, no Mexicans, no Jews, no Irish, no Italian, no Catholics. Those signs existed. Those signs were up right next to the no blacks, no coloreds, no Negroes. And we're the ones that fought on the front line to take down all those signs. We weren't just fighting the civil rights for black people. Let's go look up the history of Schwimmer and Goodman. You think the white people were financing the civil rights movement and Jews were financing the civil rights movements out of the goodness of their heart? They couldn't give a damn about us being oppressed. They knew if the no colored signs came down, the no Jew signs would come down. And the no Mexicans and no Japs, no Chinaman signs would come down. And we fought on the front lines. We became the fight of desegregation. Everybody has profited from desegregation except us. Soiled solidarity. And then, right after that, on the heels of that came the labor movement. A fight for 15. Y'all like to think y'all invented something. That labor movement has been going on. for decades. Oh, my time is getting short. I'm gonna have to stop at the labor movement. But even we got to talk about World War One, World War Two, Spanish American Wars. You know, Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Black people went to the Philippines. Black people went to Cuba, fighting and dying for the United States. And every single time we shed blood for the interests of the United States, we've been sold out, including the Iraq War, the Afghan War. They still selling us out. The labor movement, the international workers of the world, the socialists, the white communists sold us out. Women's suffrage and women's movement sold us out. The gay rights movement. And before there was a gay rights movement, there was a gay liberation movement. And before the gay liberation movement, there was the homophilic movement. And black people were there. The gay LGBTQs were there and got sold out. It has never ceased. So black people, I ain't saying we got to fight alone. I'm not saying don't have solidarity with the Palestinian struggle. I'm not saying don't have sympathy for the racist, segregated nation of Puerto Rico and what they're going through. But I must remind you, we have no friends. Dr. Clark said, there is no such thing as permanent allies. There is only permanent interest. And when you have a people who have dealt with more treason, more backstabbing, the people who have sacrificed for justice and yet get none of the concessions that come as a result of making people whole. Look at Ralph Bunche and what he did for Israel. And right after a black man helped to legitimize and establish the nation of Israel, the first thing the nation of Israel did was go make a formal alliance with the apartheid South Africa and the Rhodesians. Israel went to other settler colonial empires in Africa and said, we will give you weapons in solidarity if you validate and support us. South African apartheid government, P.W. Botha, they got the nuclear bomb and nuclear technology from the nation of Israel. And like, if you got to nuke those niggas to stay in power, then do it. And when Mandela took power, he was the only nuclear armed nation on the continent of Africa. He dismantled the bomb. Even though, don't even get me talking about North Korea and the nukes. My time is so limited. There's just so much to cover. I just get to what I can get to. I need support. You know, I'm very happy to announce I'm working with some other community members, investors, developers. I'm going to be opening a vegan organic restaurant and bookstore, and more importantly than that, it will be a hub for gathering, organizing for black people on the south side. We're going to we've got a blighted area, a bombed out building in a blighted area on the south side of Chicago that we're going to rehab and bring some development, commerce, and cooperative economics, communal economics. This isn't about enriching individuals, it's about empowering collectives, and that's going to take a lot of my time. But I've committed to doing the Bro Diallo Show. I'm walking into my walking up on my third year doing this, and it's been a great cost to me, financial and personal. You know, to be an unapologetic, uncompromised voice for our people comes with risk. And like I said, this is not a vanity project. And if you value what I'm doing here, please support. That's all I'm saying. Kick in, if you value. And if it's not, it will go away, and y'all can go back to watching, I don't know, King Noble videos or Sonetta videos. But if I gotta go, I gotta go. The struggle will continue regardless whether I'm on the air or not. But if you want Bro Diallo to remain, if you want the Bro Diallo, the guests and interviews that I bring, and the insights and references that I give to the people, please make a donation. Please become a Patreon supporter. Please go to DialloKenyatta.com or Patreon/Diallo and support. And I get in trouble even because I don't ask for support, so the people who actually support me are getting frustrated, you know, because the Bro Diallo Show can and will go away. And as I get more responsibilities, the African World Coalition, African World Order, and now when we got Ecology Cafe, it's a lot going on. And like yesterday, before I could do show prep, I had to go put in, we have an urban farm here. I had to go put in several hours of working in the urban farm. So I wish this was my only job. But even though I make time for this, I prep for this, I I need support. So again, kick in, get in where you fit in. The one thing you can definitely do is share the show. That's base level. It only takes a couple of seconds of your time, and that will, I think, speak to your intellectual social media intellectual ratio. Because after you share this, then you can share all the twerk and toe sucking you want to show, because you would have done your duty for the day. But I might have to go into these other. But basically, my basic point is, black people, we have no friends. We have no permanent allies. We only have permanent interests. And whenever we join for anybody, or anytime we get into an intersectional or vertical versus horizontal movement, we better walk through the door saying, this is what we will not compromise on. This is what we intend to take away. And the moment that our standards and conditions are not met, we're walking and we're taking everything we came in with and more. And people got to know there will be consequences for violating our solidarity and violating our alliances. We got to get serious about this. And like I said, you listen to the Bro Diallo show. I stand in solidarity with the Palestinians and their struggle. I stand in solidarity with the Venezuelan people. Anywhere there are people fighting for their sovereignty, fighting against Western imperialism, omnicidal capitalism, they have my support. And I'm willing to work with them. But I'd be damned if I do anything out of the goodness of my heart. It's got to be about the empowerment and liberation of our people. You know, I'm a vegan. I stand in solidarity with animal rights activists. But I'll be damned if I don't come in and for the interests of my people. I mean, there are literally white animal rights activists that get out there and try to stop the trains and stop the trucks that are taking the pigs and the chickens to slaughter. And at the same time, they're laying down to stop the trucks. The prison trucks go right by unobstructed, and white folks don't even blink. I'm not playing those games. Black people, we've done it too long. And we don't owe, as Dr. John Henry Clark, I'm going to leave it at this because I got some good music for y'all. I got some good additional insights. Stay tuned. But Dr. Clark said we don't owe nobody nothing but an ass whooping. So can't nobody ask nothing of us. And when they do try to reach out to us claiming they want to help us or want our support on something, please don't be apologetic or subtle in saying, what is in it for my people? What do we bring into it, and what the hell do we get out of it? And if that is not satisfactory, we walk. Say happy trails to you. Good luck. Because we've proven our ability to be loyal allies to every movement, to every racial group, to every nation. We've proven our ability to be loyal allies. And not one group has proven that on our behalf, have proven that they could be loyal to us. So I don't want to hear black people talking about solidarity with anybody but other. And we still trying to unite with white folks here and then claiming, oh, Africans don't want us. So the African diaspora and our African people on the continent, the African people of Latin America, the African people of the so-called New World, Western Europe, the Americas, those are our allies, our permanent allies. Because even if we don't get along and don't like each other, we're going to share the same damn fate. Everybody else, allegiances need to be negotiated beyond that. Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio, AM 1680, iTunes app, TuneIn Radio. You can listen live also on the Q4 website. Also, I'm broadcasting. I normally broadcast from Facebook, but I'm jumping over to YouTube to broadcast the show. Let me know. And even when I go off live, I continue to broadcast up until 10 a.m. So you can definitely find your way to what do you call it? To the other sources to listen live. Don't leave me here hanging, even if I'm not on live. But I like to broadcast through to get the word out through as many channels as possible. But now we're about to go to some music, and after some music, we got some more insights. And again, negotiate them terms and conditions, and don't compromise. We owe nobody nothing but an ass whooping. And with that, we're gonna play some old school hip hop, Boogie Down Productions. Give me that boy. And after the music selections, we'll come back with some insights and scholarship. Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio.
BDP.
Okay, I'm going off of YouTube Live, but I'm going to still be on the air till 10 a.m. So stay tuned. And uh, I'm good question. Um, because they're gonna cut me off anyway with the music and everything. So please go to iTunes, go to 24 Radio, go to the other sites, and we will be on till 10 a.m. I'll see y'all Wednesday morning on live. Please.